Okay. This is something wrong. Colonization. Colonize. So, so it basically covers British colonization. And previously, even though we have Muslim empires, we have Roman empires, and all of this involve colonization. These types of colonization are not covered by postcolonialism. Postcolonialism covers only Western colonization that came in or that happened during the 18th to 19th centuries. Colonization was the violent appropriation and sustained exploitation of the native races and faced by European cultures. So European cultures came to um, came to the east to colonize um, our spaces because we had something called spices, and we also had trading posts and what do you call that? Not actually trading posts, but port of calls that were very famous around the world. And Malacca is our main port of call, and in this port of call, um, people from China and India came and traded with each other because it was the most convenient place to be. It's actually right in the middle of India and China. So uh, these people came here to trade. And then Europeans who had heard of the trading that was taking place in places like Malacca also came to our country and wanted to trade. But they did not have anything to trade with other traders because what they had like iron, ammunitions, people from other countries like China and India did not want to buy. Okay, so they wanted the goods coming from India and China, such as tea, spices, ceramics. So they wanted to buy these things and at cheaper prices or at cheap prices. So they decided that the best way to do that was actually to colonize or imperialize these places. Colonize meant that you transport a colony of group of people to foreign land. Yeah? So that's what the Portuguese did when they colonized Malacca. So they also successfully colonized these places because of the political instability that the Malaccan Kesultanan had experienced at that time under Sultan Mahmud, who was not a good ruler. So by 18th and 19th century, Britain had colonized many countries. British colonial rule depended on seeing the native population of these colonized countries as inferior and needing the advanced civilization offered by Western culture. So they colonized places from places like Canada to Australia, and in between that, they also colonized India and parts of Africa. So their empire stretched all over the world. So one of the reasons why they colonized, as I've said earlier, to get raw materials at very cheap price or at no price at all, and then they also wanted, because there was industrial revolution happening in their country, they started to produce machines, and through the machines they started to mass manufacture many goods. They needed a market to sell those goods to, and the colonies provided a market for their finished goods. Now, any like anyone who has colonized or any country who has colonized another person's country, they would feel guilty about the act of colonizing, but they justified this act by stating that they were trying to um, make these native people more civilized. So how do they do this? They imported. How do they instill in the minds of the native people that their culture is more superior, or the culture is superior to the native people, and they needed to teach the native people how to be more civilized. They exported. One way of doing this is through exporting legal and religious institutions, military, political, aesthetic ideas also came from this, and economic regime. So all aspects of life were exported, including even religion. Religion also was um, propagated. Christianity came together um, with colonization. In places like Africa, India, or Malaysia, British law, Christianity, British history, English language, they became um, very widely taught at schools. So we have a picture of a convent there. So in the terms of art and music or aesthetics, cultures that of the Arabs and the Chinese and the Malays, they were looked upon as being inferior to those of the English. And Chaucer, Shakespeare, and Milton became the greatest artists who had ever lived, um, because these were taught by the schools. That British culture, English culture is more superior than other people's culture. To this day, maybe there will be problems finding out who this person is on their left, but I think this person on your right is somebody that is well known to most of you. Maybe later I can ask you this question about who is more well known. So in English department, our job originally was to assert the importance of English, the English as um, the English civilization and language and literature upon all mankind. So there, we also had the job to establish or uphold the same grammatically acceptable form of English for everyone around the globe. It's the pages are running; they're very sensitive. Sorry about that. Postcolonialism in general, the theory enables us to read colonial and colonizing practices. It invokes ideas of social justice, emancipation, and democracy in the face of racism, discrimination, and exploitation. So, colonialism also, even though the British were telling us that they wanted to civilize us, they also practiced a lot of racism, in the sense that they viewed themselves as being more advanced than other people. So, post-colonialism is a theory that seeks to rectify this, improve this, by saying that there should be social justice, emancipation, freedom, and democracy all over the world without anyone being racist or discriminated and so on. And then the prefix post in post-colonialism also signifies that colonialism actually um, happens happens only post-colonialism happens only after a country has been declared as independent. But post-colonialism also means that we are living in a world that is still colonized. And even though we have many countries have experienced independence from British, have gone to have become independent, we um, we still have to deal with forms of colonialism. That's why we're still studying post-colonialism, because even though we live in a post-colonial world, there are elements of post-colonialism. I'm sorry, there are elements of colonialism still in this world. We have imperialism, British imperialism, and so on. Now, um, what is examined is how first our Western world represented the non-European native world, our colonial histories, anthropology, cartography. Anthropology is the study of primitive people. So cartography is study of maps, were rooted in a racial discourse, how the natives were feminized, dehumanized, and marginalized in both representation and real life in the period of colonialism, the psychological effects of colonialism on colonizers and colonized, the instruments of colonial domination, English literature, art, and architecture, the rise of nationalistic discourse that resisted colonialism. So all of this will be studied by post-colonial theorists. Now, It questions also the politics. Why are we studying English literature when we have been freed from their from colonization? So they asked whether it's necessary that English department reinforce the security and power of Western culture. So post-colonial theory is concerned with examining the ways through which the colonizing powers persuaded the colonized people to accept Western cultures as better than the cultures of the colonized people. So it looks also at the binary opposition of white versus other, and because the other is black, yellow, brown, red. There are people of different colors. So post-colonial theories argue that white people should not be better than people of other colors. Okay. So they seek to establish what do you call that? Uh, Justice in society by looking at the idea of prejudice, racial prejudice, that is in existence in literature as well as in other realms of knowledge. So when you think about how you know what someone race belongs to, usually okay. Now this is connected to the idea of race. Post-colonialism, colonizing other people, is connected. Western people colonizing other people is connected to the idea of race. Race. What is race? Race is your biological traits. These biological traits are then attached to different certain ideological signifiers, ideas and concepts that we have in our. Oh, I'm sorry. This is not signifiers. This should be signified. Other signified, ideological signified. So this is an example of what we have of people, the ideas that we have of people. See, white person, somebody who is successful, somebody who is rich. But you see a black person, it normally implies that the skin color normally implies that this person is poor, yeah? And then not so intelligent. So as any signifying system, the connection between the signifier and signifier is arbitrary. So, even though it's arbitrary, we keep making the same connection. This could mean, for example, following Chaucer, we can say that he could be uneducated. He could be um, he could be somebody who likes sports, for example, and comes from a working class. But because of the signifiers, because of racism, we get a different idea. A different idea passes through our mind, and we think that everyone can be determined by uh, the color of their skin. So here we have the best poem that challenges this idea of white versus colored. The first stanza is about a black person who remains black throughout his life. But in the second stanza, you have different white people who are of different colors, who have different colors throughout their life. So it is making a fun of the white people. So this is a book, Orientalism by Edward Said. Edward Said was interested in how Arabs were being represented in Western literature, and the study of Orientals or Arabs is actually called Orientalism. Now, those who study it is called Orientalists, and Orientalists study about Orientals and Orient, the Orient itself. So, Said started the field of post-colonial studies and criticism in 1978 with the publication of his book, Orientalism. And the book offers a fundamental study on how signifiers get connected to signified through discursive means to create something called race. Said argues that we create knowledge about a supposed racial group. And the best example is anthropology, because anthropologists create knowledge about the orang asli, for example, the Aborigines. And then they are the ones who say that the orang asli is quite primitive and they are more advanced. Okay, so it could be very racist, the anthropology. This knowledge produces power because the superior Western culture could define and describe the subordinated colonized culture as being inferior to their own. Said uses the word Orientalism to refer to a set of discourse on the Orient. Here is a picture with which is supposedly based on a real place in the East, in the Orient, uh, perhaps in North Africa. And then you can say that in North Africa, there used to be houses that have different compounds for men and women. So this one is a compound for women, and it is a place where all the women of the household go to, where they sleep, where they eat, and so on. And it's called the harem. Okay? It's haram. It comes from the word haram for men. Huh? So you see in this picture, the woman is very naked, or almost semi-naked, and then she is hearing somebody playing her a song, and there is also a male guard standing over to look at them, making sure that no men enter their compounds. So you see this is a portrait of the imagination, because it's not based on reality. It's painted by Delacroix. And Delacroix show all Eastern women as being over sexualized and interested only in listening to music and wasting their life. So, uh, okay, so their painting, according to Said, is also telling its viewers about the Westerners who are normal people, but the Easterners, they are abnormal. So they listen to music, they undress themselves, and so on. So this is how, according to Said, Westerners propagate the idea that Easterners are not so civilized. So they are opium heathen, or opium smoking heathen, mysterious, exotic, and then the Westerners will be the binary opposites of this, which is rational, civilized, scientific, and common. Um, so the Orient places becomes a place where body as opposed to mind, evil as opposed to good, and feminine reside. By placing all form of otherness on the Orient, he said the Occident can construct itself as positive. Now, another way for them, the Europeans, to construct the other races as unimportant is through the map. Now they are the ones who drew the map. So the zero longitudinal line actually runs across a place called Greenwich, because it was the European who did the map, not other countries, people of the other countries. So also, if you see from this map, which is more politically correct than the current one that we have, um, while Greenwich remains at the center, you can see that countries like America and Asia actually, when in the conventional map, will be placed uh, at the top rather than at the bottom. So it meant that, why are they being placed like this? It meant that these regions are important to mankind. And our, yeah, I think that's it. Um, so here, um, that idea has been debunked or thrown away, because America is placed at the bottom. Now, Said also argues that creation of discourse about colonized culture and about the other work also to silence the colonized culture. So when Europeans write about the Orang Asli and so on, Orang Asli cannot write back about his own self. He is being silenced by the colonizers. Post-colonial literature, an important part of post-colonial studies is to analyze what happens after the formerly colonized culture start to or insist on producing its own discourse. So before this, we were looking at Edward Said and so on. So he was critiquing the colonial writers and their writing. But in post-colonial literature also, we have people who critique post-colonial literary writings. Um, What happens when the empire writes back? Empire writes back is a book by Bill Ashcroft and Helen Tiffin, which showcases post-colonial literature from writers living in the post-colonial countries across the world. This is world, W-O-R-D, LD, sorry. Um, so this is Homi Bhabha. He is the one of the most important figures in contemporary postcolonial studies and has coined a number of the issues of neologism and key concepts such as hybridity, mimicry, and ambivalence. Bhabha also defines the postcolonial identities as shifting hybrid construction because for Bhabha we are not just Malays, we speak English, we read about Shakespeare and so on. Yeah? So we are hybrids. Um, He criticizes the project dichotomies between the center and periphery, colonized and colonizers, self and other. So he tries to deconstruct all of these structures. He proposes instead a dialogic model of nationalities, ethnicities, and identities characterized what he calls hybridity. And that is so they are something new emerging from the third space to interrogate the givens of the past. So in the third space is a place where different people can meet from different classes, people from different classes and people from different wealth levels, for example, they can meet in these spaces. That space, like the mosque and the museum. So colonialism, he stresses, is not on one-way street because it involves an interaction between colonizers and colonized. The colonizer is much affected by colonialism, and nowadays we can see that because we have something right now which is called reverse colonialism. It is when Pakistanis, Indians come to the UK to sell their food. When the UK people have not really asked them to do this. Another example, the old distinction between industrialized and developing does not hold to today because so many industrialized jobs have been moved from countries such as the United States to countries like India and Philippines. So post-colonial critics accordingly study diasporic texts, people writing, immigrant writing about the experiences in the countries. Subaltern studies reveal how female subjects are silenced by dialogue between the male-dominated race. So here we have another cabang or branch of postcolonialism in the writings of Gayatri Spivak, who argue that third world women are underrepresented in this post-colonial studies because very few women actually, very few women actually write and make their voices heard. Most of the people who write about their countries are mostly males, whether it's white or not. This is an example of a writing that that uses the post-colonial approach. It's simply titled "The White Man's Burden." I think everyone has heard of this before. So limitations of post-colonial criticism. There is also first of all, we have individual theories. And then these theories work alone. That's the problem. They work alone. They don't work as a group. And then another problem is that the post-colonial theorists like to ignore contextual differences. They want to focus on colonized versus colonizer. Okay, they don't want to focus on the different religions of the colonized and how we react to colonization in a different way from each other. And then they also said that Islam is exists, Islamic resurgence exists because we are trying to fight or challenge Westerners. So that's why we have Islamic resurgence. Now, this is a problem because Islam is something that has appeared before colonization, so it shouldn't be it shouldn't be looked at as a kind of like rebellion against colonizing powers. So then we have post-colonial scholarship, which identifies Islam as a post-colonial as simply a form of oppression. and political manipulation. And that Islam outside the fundamentals or extremist expressions are often absent from post-colonialist literature, post-colonial critical writings. And then the last one is that Westerners have written about Easterners, and they are, even though they are colonizers, and they wrote their narratives when it was the time of colonialism. Um, some of what they have written is true. We have Anthony Burgess who writes about a Malay king who drinks alcohol in his novel, The Malayan Trilogy. And not so long ago, when this book was published, it was banned from Malaysia because of the depiction of the king. But there is nothing wrong with the depiction of the king actually, even though he was drinking alcohol, because kings at that time drank alcohol, Malay kings, and it was quite common to find Malay people also drinking during the 1960s, 1970s, 1950s. It was quite common, so there was nothing wrong with the representation. Okay, so that's it for today. Do you have any question that you want to ask? Is there anything that is unclear? Do you have anything unclear? Anything that you want to ask about colonialism? Is it clear? Yeah? Okay. So anything that you want to ask? Basically, I think if you have taken Malaysian and Singaporean lit, you would have encountered some writings on the post-colonial period as well as the colonial period, right? Um, and I taught one class on Malaysian and Singaporean lit, and it was very interesting. I taught some writings that were written during this period, which really touch on the idea of colonialism, because we were both, Malaysian and Singapore, were both colonized by the British. Okay. So anything that you want to ask? Back to this one. Okay. Back to this one. Does anyone know? Okay. Does anyone know? This person here on your right. Can somebody answer? On the right hand side, you have who? Who is being whose picture is that? Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Can you cannot see? Look, okay. Sorry about that. Okay, so whose picture is on your right hand side?
It's William Shakespeare.
Yeah, again?
William Shakespeare.
William Shakespeare. Okay, now the more trickier one. Who is on your left? Anyone can answer from this class? Nobody? Okay, so that's why we are being colonized. Cannot um, appreciate our own culture. So we need to decolonize ourselves. That's why we are still in the colonial period. Even though people say that we are in the post-colonial period, because our country has been liberated and has experienced independence from the British. We are still inside this colonial period, because nobody can really appreciate their own culture. They can only appreciate the Western culture. And this person is, somebody can really answer this. This person is Osman Awang. Osman Awang is a Malay literary figure, a writer, Malay poet. He mostly writes poetry and also we call that poetry and plays. So his name is Osman Awang, and he has already passed away. Okay, so he's not going to tell you how important he is, because he has already passed away. But you see here, when we have our why is it important that we learn about our own culture? Because who else will remember our culture, right? If not us. Yeah. So we need to remember our own literary figures. So do some homework. Yeah? Do some homework on Malaysian literary figures. Because we want you to appreciate Malaysian literature as well, not just British literature or English literature. So, also, sometimes we have ideas. Another story that I want to tell you is when I was one day I was in KLCC. I was going shopping, and then I met a man who had a short conversation with me, and he told me he was from Switzerland, and he said that a princess, one of our princesses, had contacted him, and they got into a conversation. They became pals, um, and then she invited him to visit Malaysia, and he went to Malaysia. He met her at the airport, and suddenly the princess was not so happy after only looking at him from afar, or maybe after meeting him close up. She wasn't happy. Suddenly, she just walked out of the airport, without looking at him anymore. You know why? You know why? Because even though he had come from Switzerland, and even though his name sounds like Jean Pierre, a French name, he was not white. He wasn't white. He was black. Okay, he was he had African blood in him, but he came from Switzerland. Yeah. So I know people have ideas about other people in this world. They think they're not racist, but when they marry someone, they want to marry somebody who has lighter skin tone, right? Or when they see television series, they want to see people who are beautiful, right? According to their eyes, based on race also. They don't want to see dark skinned people. They want to see light skinned people. Okay, so we still have this idea of racism in our culture, and then also if you go to UIA via the MR2, you can see a billboard outside on the road leading to UIA, and it sells a special kind of what do you call that? A cream, yeah? A cream that is supposed to make your skin lighter, whiter. Huh? So I find it degrading actually, because what's wrong with our darker skin, right? And we still have racist ideas, but interestingly, all this racism is actually imported, because if you look at the concept of race, which states that your race belongs to your bloodlines, okay, that is not true before Western colonialists came to Malaysia, because our our ancestors, we know that. Is there any Malay that is 100% Malay? Yeah, we all have mixed blood, right? Including myself. Our ancestors intermarried with other people of other races, and they never had any problem with race. There was nothing like interracial marriages back then, before the Western colonial power came. But after the Western colonial power came, they introduced to their colonies the concept of race. They were very, very, what do you call that? Um, Very particular about what race a person belongs to. Huh? And Malay people before that didn't really care. They intermarried with many other races. That was okay. You see people from uh, Malacca, right? Baba and Nyanya, yeah, they had many interracial marriages. They produced Baba and Nyonya as a group of people. Um, and then the writer of Sejarah Melayu was also an Indian. His name is Tan Sri Lanang. Tun Sri Lanang is actually an Indian man. He's in Mama. It's a Muslim Indian man. Okay, so people at that time did not make a huge issue of race, but when British colonials came, they imported the idea of race, and other people's races are inferior to theirs. Okay, so this is the problem also with colonialism. So anyone wants to ask me anything? Anyone wants to ask me anything? No, nothing. Okay, okay. Sorry, you have to hear my lecture right now. Just now, it's 1 hour. 'Cause I don't, if you have any question, just maybe you can add spice to this talk, right? We can make it livelier. Anything else you want to say? Okay, so I guess that's it. I'll be giving you the quiz on Italian. You can see the second quiz 2. Okay, so you have 2 tries. The last try is the one, the mark that I will give. Whether you try it once or twice, doesn't matter. But the marks, if you try it twice, the last attempt mark, the mark for the last attempt will be counted. Okay, if you try once, then that is the mark that will be counted. Okay, so I hope to hear from you next in our next class on Thursday. Okay, so bye. That will be on modernism. Okay, thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you, Doctor.
Okay, I hope everybody is still alive. Yeah.
Thank you, Doctor.
Okay, bye.